please give a warm welcome to Jim and Rene. Jim and Rene, thank you so much for joining us today from Tripawds.
Hi, that's Sarah. You're so kind. Thank you for the compliments.
Glowing
really
review. Thank you so much for having us.
So Jerry was a German Shepherd mix. He was a pretty large dog, I guess, 75 pounds roughly. And he was what we like to call our chief fun officer. So he was always by our side when we were working to build our business that we had way back when. This is a long time ago. This is 2006. And he was just the best, most patient dog. But as you can see in that image right there of him holding up his paw, his front left paw, Jerry developed a limp, and it was this persistent limp that we had no idea what it was. He just kept limping, and we kept taking him to the vet, and the vet said, it's arthritis. He's 8 years old. Get used to it. He's getting old. And, you know, this was back in the days when rehab therapy was really new. So, you know, not a lot of information was given to us at the time. It wasn't until a veterinary technician at the clinic we were taking him to, she took us aside one day. It was like our third time going there, trying to get an answer. Why is our dog limping? And she told us, you guys might want to get another opinion. Just see if you find out something else about what this problem is. And we did. And that vet said, I don't know. Let's send you down to UC Davis. So the University of California at Davis came up with a diagnosis like that. We love vet teaching hospitals, but anyhow, they told us he had osteosarcoma, and they told us that the best thing to do for Jerry was to amputate the leg with the tumor. And we looked at each other and we were like, dogs get cancer and we need to amputate? What? I mean, this like, whoo, Jerry had never had any health issues. He was a really healthy dog, and it blew our mind and it rocked our world. And we thought there's no way our dog is going to be happy on 3 legs. That was our gut reaction.
So literally, we didn't even know dogs got cancer at the time. And this was our introduction to it. And they throw out this thing about amputation, and we felt lost and alone, sitting in a hotel room with our dog, under anesthesia, getting deeper scans. And the vet called us and said, we can do this now, or you'd have to reschedule for weeks later, or we could just not wake him up. And that wasn't an option.
Yeah, it was a really fast decision we had to make. So he said, we can do this amputation right now. There's a tumor in there and it's invading his scapula. It's big.
But we gave him the go ahead, not knowing how he would pee. Could he ever swim again? How are we ever going to go to the beach again? And we start Googling it. And at the time in 2006, there wasn't a lot of help and support, but
Facebook wasn't even on.
Yeah, I mean, there were some groups out there and message boards, but no real support from others who have been through it. And we found on YouTube a video of a Great Dane named Moose digging up a gopher with one front leg, and his person just so happy, go get him, Moose, go get. And it was just like, if that dog can do it, Jerry can do it. And we took Jerry home with one less leg, and he adapted and overcome, and we freaked out.
Yeah, we had a harder time than he did. Anytime he stumbled or, just we had 18 stairs to get him in and out of the house just to use the bathroom. And that was such a struggle. And we were having a harder time than he was. If he stumbled, he'd get back up. No big deal, whatever. I'd cry. I mean, it took weeks for us to feel like things are going to be okay. We had no idea that 2 years later, Jerry would have showed us that, yeah, things are going to be better than okay.
And we talk about lessons all over, about this, but one of the first things was resilience and adaptability. I mean, literally, Jerry said, no, don't carry me. I'm going to go up and down these stairs. And he learned to slide along the wall and help himself down the stairs. And then we discovered things like harnesses and things that can help, which we can get into. But it was that diagnosis at the time that really spun our life around 360 degrees. And Rene said one day, I got an idea. Let's sell everything. Let's sell the house. Let's buy an RV. Let's travel with Jerry, because the vets gave him, 6 months to a year prognosis. And well, after 8 years. Jerry was 8 years old. As our chief fun officer, we wanted to pay him back. And Rene said, let's go on a road trip. Let's buy an RV. Let's sell everything. And we did that, thinking he had maybe a year to live. And I think that lifestyle helped him survive those 2 years on 3 legs and loving every day of it. And at that time, we started a little blog called Tripawds, with the paw in the middle, to kind of reclaim. And they call 3-legged dogs and cats tripods, like a stool or a camera tripod. And it was kind of derogatory. So we thought, well, let's reclaim that. Let's repower it. And we registered a domain just to share photos and videos of Jerry loving life on 3 legs, and us not knowing any better, us going back to the beach and playing Frisbee with him and playing basketball with him, and all these things that we now have learned over the years can be detrimental over time. And he ended up living 2 years on the road. And by the time he was gone, we had discussion forums and blogs and numerous free resources that we could get into about the tripawds.com side.
But Tripawds just started as a way for us to cope. It was purely selfish motives. We just wanted to vent. We wanted to tell our friends and family how he was doing, and then over time people started contacting us.
Well, another selfish thing, we kept getting emails directly to us about people's dogs. And I had one type of dog with one type of cancer, a front left leg, and I decided, let's put in some discussion forums and let people ask each other. And that's when the site really became a resource and a community. People joined and started sharing stories about a pug with mast cell cancer and a blind Great Dane with osteosarcoma and every dog in between. And now we have cats joining us, and there are 1,800 3-legged dog and cat blogs on the Tripawds network. We have a live chat where people can join and members can chat with each other any time of day. Photos and videos in the galleries. There's the Tripod Talk Radio podcast and the live chat and the discussion forums and the blogs and ebooks and videos and products and nutrition. And the biggest complaint we ever get is that we have too much information. So one of the places we point people to is tripawds.com/start. And it really just spells out this vast amount of resources and points people to where they might want to go, because someone might just want to talk. So we have the Tripawds Foundation helpline, and people can call and pick up the phone, or they might want to jump in the chat, or they might want to start a blog. And I could go on and on about all of those things.
I have so many questions about all of that.
Please do, fire away, we're ready.
People are jumping in and they are saying hello as well.
Hi everyone.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start, because I want to talk about, obviously we want to talk about Tripawds, but I listened to a couple other podcast interviews that you did, and I think something that you said about, because dogs it's so much harder for us. I really think, we're so in our head and we tend to put our emotions onto our animals. It's so much harder for us. And Jim, you said something really powerful in one of your other interviews when Jerry came out of surgery, and where he had gone in and he was kind of dull and sad, and he had this limp, and he came out, and do you know where I'm going with this?
When he was released, it was actually Thanksgiving Day, and the vet came in, and going in, he was in pain and his ears were back. And we now know these signals that we didn't know at the time that can really tell and scream that the dog is in pain and uncomfortable. And I remember when the vet showed up that Thanksgiving morning in his flip-flops and he came out, I expected him to come out on a gurney with, fluids attached and bags of medicine. And I saw that vet carrying the e-collar, an Elizabethan collar, in his hand, and Jerry hopping at the end of the leash toward us with a smile on his face. And then I noticed the big incision wrapping around his body. But I noticed immediately Jerry was happier and more pain-free. And we soon learned that amputation, it doesn't get rid of the cancer. We understand that, but it will get rid of the pain, especially with bone cancers and osteosarcoma. That's just going to keep getting worse, and it's going to deteriorate. And then it's a pathological fracture, and that's traumatic. But thankfully, we caught it in time. And I noticed the smile on Jerry's face, and all of my stress and questions was kind of relieved, because I understood we can do this. we can follow his lead. And Jerry has got it down. He's already walking, and we'll figure out to deal with the stairs. And we learned when he ran outside for the first time and picked up his toy and shook it and then let out a yelp, because he was, German Shepherd. But the first time he did it, it was like that one, and then he dropped the toy and kind of limped away, and Rene freaked out to run by his side. And I said, wait, just let him be a dog a minute here and let's follow his lead. Immediately he adapted. He's like, oh, I meant to do that. It's okay. And I'm still healing. And then we started to learn things about recovery and how to be, good stewards for their care. But it was really about understanding that dogs are resilient, they adapt and overcome. And we had to follow that lead.
And I think that's I
think that's where you were going with that.
It is, because you had said it, and you said it again today, that, you were so worried, and the very first thing you saw was not this big bandage on his shoulder. It wasn't the 3 legs. It was the great big smile on Jerry's face as he came out and was like, man, do I ever feel better? And I think that,
yes,
yeah, we just have sometimes, again, putting our own emotions on it and trying to figure out how are we going to do this. And I think what you said about pain is really powerful, and it's really important. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, because I often hear, even within my own practice, well, I can't really tell if my dog's in pain, and they'll come in with like a cruciate tear and they'll be limping. And just some of those indications that you kind of learned after the fact that you might have saw before, but you didn't know what they were. Can you talk a little bit about
sure.
that? Rene?
Absolutely. I mean, it all goes back to when he started limping, and it didn't occur to us that if a dog is limping, they're in a lot of pain. We didn't know that dogs would do whatever it takes to hide their pain. And when it gets to the point where they're actually showing a visible sign like that, you got to do something quick. We didn't know that. And still a lot of people don't know that. And I think the common thinking in the pet parent world is that, well, other than a limp, my dog seems happy.
He's not in
well,
pain.
that limp is a big indicator that something's going on and it needs to be addressed. So that was the first time that the idea of a pain signal was introduced into our world. And as everybody gets better, veterinarians are getting better, and pet parents are getting better at recognizing signs of pain in dogs and cats. We're learning that there are other things to look out for, like the lack of appetite. Jerry had a lack of appetite, a serious one. He was never a big eater to begin with, but before he was diagnosed, I just thought he was being picky. He just doesn't like that food.
Stubborn.
Stubborn. Here's another thing that is really common is that we think that if a dog sits down on their walk, they're just being stubborn. And we've learned over time that's not necessarily the case. If they're sitting down, they're not feeling it, man. They've done too much. You've gone too far. Time to go back. There's a reason why they sat down, not necessarily that they're stubborn. So we've learned a lot of things the hard way. And it started with the limp, but then it continued on. Like after Jerry recovered and he was doing so well, we went back to the beach and started throwing a Frisbee around with him. And we got some spectacular photos of him on the beach catching the Frisbee. And now we look at him and we cringe because we know that kind of explosive activity wasn't the best thing for him. And we learned that thanks to rehab therapists like you, that, there are things, just because a tripod can do something doesn't necessarily mean they should. So over time, we learned that to minimize any kind of pain that they could experience, we need to be better at moderating their activity.
About those pain signals in particular, over the years, we've interviewed some leading pain management experts and now understand that when the ears go back, that can be an indication of pain. Or the lip smacking, when the dogs are smacking their lips, the inappetite. What are some other things?
Oh, there's so many.
The chewing, the gnawing, the pawing,
the licking,
and really to stress that, in the wild, when a dog is sick, the wolf or whatever is going to run off and leave the pack and heal on his own, and doesn't want to show his weakness, and he wants to be strong. And before the amputation, Jerry would limp and then he wouldn't limp. And then he'd limp, but it would look like a different leg. And previous in his life, he had a foxtail once. So the only thing I knew about limping was like, his paw must be hurt. So we were all trying to figure out what was going on. And I'll never forget the night when I was kind of palpating around and I was working up his leg and I touched his shoulder and he let out a yelp and kind of nipped at me. So not a big pain indicator if they're nipping at you and they've never done that. Whoa, that was, we need another opinion for sure. And sure enough, this tumor, like the size of a mango, was growing inward. So we didn't see any bulge, but it was certainly, starting to press on his neck and spine up in the scapula there. And that's when we determined, we tell everyone now, a second or third opinion is very important and to look out for these signals. And we've got a number of charts and interviews and videos at Tripawds at the tag pain management to help people understand those things. And that's what our mission is all about now, is sharing these lessons we learned with other people so they don't feel lost and alone like we did.
And that's a big part of it too. And thank you for sharing on the pain, because I really think that those changes in behavior, sometimes they're subtle, especially, I love shepherds. Sammy was a shepherd. I have a real soft spot, but these stoic dogs, I think Rene, you nailed it when you were like, if your dog is limping, that's a sign of pain. Like, it's just, the behavior changes are the more subtle, but when we get to the point of a limp, it's they're not just limping. And I love, Jim, how you talked about sometimes he was trying to adjust for it. So it would look like he was limping on a different leg and things like that. Cause sometimes I hear, well, like, sometimes he just switches it up. I think he's just playing with me. And it's like, well, no,
right, he's not playing.
I mean, you're smart, but I don't know if they're that smart.
I've said those very same things. I mean, in the early days, I definitely said that about Jerry's limp.
And it's easy, and you just don't know. And that's a big part of what you're doing around the education piece of it, and letting people know that, these are the things to look out for and what it looks like. And you did, talking about pain, and you were talking about the Frisbee on the beach and kind of your learnings, because, I always feel guilty when I'm telling people, Frisbee, fetch, probably shouldn't be doing that. But Jerry had, did he have a cruciate tear? Did he have an injury?
Partial is what they call it.
Your journey into the rehab side. I'm curious how you cared for him, and then at what point you learned a little bit about rehab and bringing in somebody else to also help you help him.
Sure. Well, you're correct. After too many times throwing the Frisbee around, and probably the chuck it and doing crazy things like that with him,
showing off how great he can be.
Yeah, he started to limp, and we took him to the vet, and she suspected a partial tear. So she referred us to an acupuncturist, and this was 2007 or 8 and 2007. And back then, it was still really new in the veterinary field. But this acupuncturist really taught us a lot about just toning it down. Let's try to treat this suspected partial tear with some acupuncture. She
did confirm
and rest.
It was a partial tear.
She did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first time we even knew that acupuncture for dogs existed, and that we should be more mindful of what we were doing with him. That really scared us, because when we started throwing the Frisbee around after he was recovered, we thought we were being cautious because we waited like 2 months before we took him to the beach, and we throw it low and things like that. But nobody expected Jerry to live 2 years. So I think in our minds, we were thinking, well, if he's only 6 months, let's just make it the best 6 months ever. Well, he surprised us, lived for those 2 years. And during that 2 years is when he suffered that injury. And that scared us, because we thought he could keep going and going, and we don't want this to happen again. So we started being more mindful about what we did with him. And yeah, it limited our adventures together, but we found other things to do. And one of the things we like to tell new tripod parents is rethink what is fun with you and your dog, because everybody thinks Frisbees, long walks, ball throwing, that's what you do with dogs. There's so much more out there. And just today I was talking to a nosework specialist that we're going to be interviewing soon. But exercising the mind over the body in the case of a tripod is so much more beneficial. They still need physical exercise, like, of course, but doing the mind games, the brain games, especially during recovery, it's a way to bond with your dog and a way to just keep things toned down a little bit. They do need it, you know, there's, yeah.
But that incident with Jerry, with the, you know, the potential, you know, severe injury to a remaining leg was a turning point. It opened our eyes to the importance of getting a professional opinion from certified therapists like yourself, and a turning point in our content where we didn't want to just keep showing, look how great Jerry is, look at how fun he can be, look at how awesome he is on 3 legs, but to really tell people that every case is different, and that really it's our responsibility to be good stewards for their health, because the dog will adapt, overcome, and overdo it. They're going to chase the frisbee. They're going to chase the chuck it. They're going to swim into the ocean and bounce around. And we need to know that what we like to tell people about is, you know, life doesn't have to be any worse on 3 legs. It's just different. So we call it the new normal, and it's adapting to this new normal. For instance, especially shortly after amputation, more frequent, much shorter walks are much better for a tripod than 1 or 2 long walks a day. And there's core strengthening exercises that are so important, and proprioception work, and understanding where, you know, walking through a ladder to understand, you know, all tripods are going to adjust their gait and their stance, and they're going to move that center leg, rear or front, you know, center it more to keep on balance, but then that throws off the spine. And then there's all sorts of work with the core to strengthen that, and you know, weight bearing exercises and fun, you know, fitball type games that you can do that will still, you know, exercise the mind and body without overdoing it with the explosive activities.
100%. And I love that, because there really isn't a cookie cutter approach.
Right.
And you said that, which is brilliant, because it's not just as simple as, well, you're going to go home and you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E, and then everything's going to be back to normal, because every dog is different, and every dog parent is, and I say dog parents because my clients are dog parents, but every dog parent is also different. They might have different abilities themselves and different lifestyles. Some might live in an apartment building and someone else might live in the country. So not a cookie cutter approach. And I love the idea of, you know, again, there's all of these other things you can incorporate, as well as the brain work side of it. Did Jerry have a favorite game?
No.
So he had a few, but one thing he loved was a hula hoop. And we would, anytime we would get, you know, yard sales, and he's not hooping, but we'd roll the hoop and he would chase it. And a couple of times he actually like jumps through it on the run. And that was amazing. I didn't, you know, see him do that. But most often he would like grab the hoop and shake it and destroy it and tear it into tiny bits. So one of his favorite games was destroying what the thing was. But the hula hoop in particular, you know, we'd roll it, he'd chase it, he'd take it down. And that was what I was mentioning, like shortly after his first or second time outside, he saw like a scrap of the hoop and he went for it and he shook it and yelped and dropped it. So.
The healing process goes with layers.
Yeah, I mean, okay, picture us getting some kind of abdominal surgery and trying to hula hoop. That would,
sure.
Oh my God, we never do that.
But kudos to you. I've gone through a very different experience with my own dog, but to go to the vet for a diagnosis and bring home a dog on 3 legs and figure it out, the shell shock that you must have gone through, and definitely Dr. Google, because Dr. Facebook didn't exist then. But just going through that experience and being able to figure it out is a lot. And is that part of where, when I know with the tripods, that own experience?
Well, like we said, you know, we learned things the hard way with Jerry, and our process, you know, we chronicled as much as we could, but the major learning happened the second time around with Wyatt. So Wyatt is the other German Shepherd that you showed in the beginning, the darker one.
Missing a rear leg.
Wyatt was missing a rear leg, and he lost his leg to neglect by a previous person. He was tied up in their yard, ignored, the rope got wrapped around his leg and cut off the circuit. There he is, there's our sweet boy. So he was a tripod from about 8 months old until he passed when he was 12. And we learned so much with him about the physical aspect. With Jerry, it was, oh, we see him slipping on the hardwood floors. Maybe we should do something about that. And by the time we got Wyatt, we knew hardwood floors and tripods are not a good thing. So still in the early days of being his parent, we still did some dumb things that we learned later, thanks to physiotherapy, that we shouldn't be doing. That's his orthopedic vet, who was amazing. But yeah, oh, he did not like being at the vet, but he liked her. But one of the major things that we learned was that no matter how conscientious we are, that's what you'll end up with. We learned that a tripod will eventually pay the price for being on 3 legs, one way or the other. We can be super careful. Like, I have a friend who also raised a tripod from a young age, and that dog had really horrific osteoarthritis by the time she was a senior.
Like Wyatt.
And just like Wyatt, I mean, we were super conscientious about it. And making sure we wanted to mitigate any risk of OA, but he still ended up with it. But
he lived 12 years.
He lived 12 years, and it was a great quality of life, thanks to being in constant contact with an orthopedic team and his rehab therapist, because they could kind of guide us. Like, he popped up with a limp one day, and oh my God, we panicked. We checked in with them. They looked, oh, he has an iliopsoas pull. Let's do some things there to make that better.
So unfortunately, there's still vets out there, and many people on social media who will tell new tripod parents, just let him go be a dog. He'll be fine. Hugs, rough couple weeks, but then you can just let him be a dog. And that's true to an extent. But had we just let Wyatt be a dog, he might have lived 8-9 years. The osteoarthritis would have developed much sooner and or gotten worse with other, a tear on one remaining back leg. That would have been just terrible. And it's why we're so passionate about telling people to see an expert. The first thing we tell anyone in Tripawds or on the helpline is we're not vets. And please don't turn to social media for anecdotal evidence of, whatever. And it's why our foundation will help pay for a first visit with a certified practitioner to go get exercises specific to your front leg or rear leg tripod, and learn about weight management, and learn about pain indicators, and learn about the benefits of hydrotherapy and weight bearing exercises and all these other things that can specifically help. And the Tripawds rehab program will pay for the first visit. No income qualification, just anyone, cat or dog, regardless if it's your first visit, will help cover that, because we want people to understand that every dog is different, and there are treatments available to help them live a long, happy life on 3 legs.
And I think that's, again, so many amazing points. And just thank you again for creating something like that, because I don't know how many people even know that exists. And finances sometimes is that decision to figure it out on your own. And then COVID on top of it, because it really did change the impact of healthcare. I actually found a study recently that said something like, and it was a Harvard study, over 50% of dog owners or pet owners will seek out advice, health-related advice for their pets on social media, even though they don't think it's a reliable source.
Yeah, I believe it. We see it every day. And absolutely.
That, idea of, getting support, because even when we're going back to the exercises and things happen in layers and sequence, and to be able to recognize, and I love that you said this, Jim, was, that he developed arthritis, that in essence, your dog is still your dog. They're not the condition that they have. So they still can have all of these other things happen, but we tend to get kind of like this very narrow view of like the disease or the impairment, and forget that there's all these other things going on, and the dog is still the dog.
A really good example of that is there was a dog named Bart, and Bart was a Vizsla, a champion hunting dog who lost a leg to osteosarcoma. He was very fit when he lost his leg, incredibly fit. And when I first heard that he was still hunting, I was like, oh, really? Oh.
in the AKC hunting trials.
Yeah.
He's going out for like a 2-mile walk and flushing birds. And
we went to meet him and realized this dog was meant to do that. And this dog is fit enough to do that. And we could see how happy he was. He was still getting, and his mom was really conscientious and she knew what his limitations were. But to see him still getting to enjoy what he did within reason, according to what was right for that dog, it was beautiful. And we saw the same thing again with another hunting dog later named Boone. Same thing, osteosarcoma, and he was a pointer. He got to do what he loved within limits, you know. So it's a fine line, and that's
exactly what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
It's such a fine line, because we do want them to just be a dog and enjoy their life, and we do want to see those incredibly inspirational videos of the dogs, you know, dock diving and, you know, running and jumping and playing. But, you know, fly ball isn't exactly the best thing for like any dog, but a tripod especially, because it's that repetitive, you know, injury over time that can create hairline fractures. And as you know, front and rear legs are different. You know, a dog's going to carry 60 to 70% of their weight up front. So if all that is on one remaining limb, and, you know, just getting around is already doing this for the next 8 years of their life, you know, you want to address those by strengthening the compensatory musculoskeletal structure.
That was good. Well done.
he's been hanging out with therapists.
And that's, you know, we have 100+ episodes on Tripod Talk Radio where we talk to these experts and learn these amazing things, so we can tell people on, you know, whatever social media platform, when they say, oh, he'll be great, I'm like, yeah, he will, but he can be even greater if you know, guide him in the right way.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I'd love to jump into a little bit on equipment, but before we go into that, just on compensatory pain, like,
sure,
because there's we don't want something to happen to the remaining limbs, but B, I mean, just the work that they do and the other things that can happen. What was your experience, and what do you see online? And just talk a little bit more about sort of those other things that can go on when you have a tripod.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what's really common in our community is somebody will join and we'll walk them through the recovery process. We'll be conversing with them for maybe a month in the forums. We don't hear from them like after they say, oh, the dog's doing great, I'm so happy, and that's awesome. But we don't hear from them. And then 6 months, maybe a year later, they come back because their dog has a cruciate tear. Well, it turns out that cruciate tears are pretty common in tripods. And a veterinarian friend of ours actually did a study when she was at CSU, Colorado State.
Study? I was looking for it. If you could.
I'll point you to it. Yeah, I will.
That would be great.
But yeah, cruciate tears are pretty common. And so that is something we tend to see quite a bit, a surgery on a remaining limb. And that recovery is not something anybody wants to go through. It is tougher than going through amputation recovery or a regular cruciate recovery, because you've only got 3 legs and you know the process. I mean, you can't, it's tough. So we try really hard to help people avoid that. Another thing we tend to see a lot of are neck and shoulder pulls. You know, there's just that twisting and turning from propelling themselves
forward.
Bobbing
on a front leg.
And we see a lot of that. Wyatt had that. Wyatt had iliopsoas strains because his gait was so short. He didn't have that nice, long, extended shepherd trot. So his
was it Wyatt that did one of your dogs also have IVDD?
That was Wyatt. Yeah, in the end. Yeah. And that was suspected because it was COVID and we couldn't actually get a firm grip on that. But yeah, the symptoms that eventually caused us to say goodbye were that. But yeah, it's a.
I was just going to ask, what kind of things did you do, and what kind of things do you recommend people do to help with some of that compensatory pain, whether it's, you know, massage versus, you know, orthotics versus prosthetics versus a dog cart? I say dog carts. I find wheelchairs a very passive term. But yeah, did you use any of that with Wyatt? Or...
We did. And the reason we learned these things for people unfamiliar with tripods and these compensatory things, is like the extension is not there. And the reason a tripod hops, it's easier to move along, and you don't get the extension of both legs. They kind of hop along. And with Wyatt, he had the one rear leg missing, so he wasn't stretching those legs. Instead, he's hopping along
so the muscles just
so the muscles, we learned, for starters, a prom exercise, passive range of motion exercises, where you just stretch those legs that he's not normally getting in his everyday activity. Mm-hmm. And we have videos and professionals who have showed us how to do it. You don't just tweak them, but you extend those legs both ways, because they're not getting that. And that's how hydrotherapy can help, which is different than just swimming, because we learned that.
Yeah, that was a big learning lesson. Yeah. With Jerry, we just kind of
swimming's great for tripods.
Go for it,
I'm
Jerry,
sure.
Go swimming.
But it's better to have them swim in water that is just deep enough where they're stretching for the bottom. And that's why there's treadmill work, because you put it just at a point where they're going to be reaching for the bottom and using, they're going to start stretching more than they would if they were just walking. So the passive range of motion, the hydrotherapy.
We did have Wyatt in a cart for it was about a year, and that was another lesson we learned. A lot of people assume that a tripod immediately needs a cart right after surgery, and wheelchair cart manufacturers are happy to sell you one.
They'll sell them to anyone.
But one of the other reasons we started the rehab reimbursement program was to get a dog or cat assessed, so that if your tripod really needs a wheelchair, because Wyatt didn't need one until he was 10 and a half. So he went 10 years before he started showing signs that he needed something more. And
do a lot of additional exercises with Wyatt that maybe you didn't do with Jerry? Like
for sure.
Before the
proprioception.
So talk about those.
Yes. Early on, we learned how to walk him differently. So one of the things, and this was when he was relatively young, we were working with the rehab team at Colorado State, and we learned to take him on these walks on uneven terrain. Don't just keep going down the sidewalk because it's smooth and easy. We want to challenge him just a little bit, get him
up and down the curb.
Up and down curves. We'd see a parking lot and those little concrete things between parking stalls. We'd have him stand on for a minute and then walk over to another one, or we'd snake in between them. But varying up his walking routine every day, that was really important.
Core exercises.
So like you were talking about earlier, the equipment. We bought a balance.
We made a wobble board.
We made a wobble board. We actually have a DIY wobble board.
So I made plans for it, and you can download it. And what the wobble board does, it's a platform and it wobbles, and the dog stands on it, and that will cause them to engage those core muscles to keep upright while the surface below them is tossing and turning. And then the balance, the bone or the balance ball that we got him, that one, he's there. We actually put that in front of his food. He ate on an elevated stand, so that helps tripods. But with that, every time he ate, he was actually engaging his core and putting more weight on the back legs.
I did a little video of him once, and he was eating, and then I focused down on his feet on the bone, and you could see his feet were doing this. And that was one thing a therapist taught us to do. And I am not 100% sure if that's also effective for a front legger, but because Wyatt was missing that rear leg, she wanted us to try that.
But the exercise for the front legger would be to put both rear legs on the bone and have them stretch towards a treat, or kind of what I would do is I would step on the balance disc, so it would inflate and it would cause a Wyatt or front or rear to use those core muscles.
Then we also learned that during the times where he did have some muscle weakness going on, or maybe a strained neck muscle, we also learned that those exercises were not appropriate at that time. So we'd meet with a therapist, and what was that?
Not a cookie cutter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It changed over time. His routines, I'd say maybe there were like 3 big junctions in his life where we had to do things differently just because of the aging process. So when he got to the point where he needed wheels, it was great. It was like, oh my God, his world opened up again because he could go on longer walks. But one thing that a lot of people...
Was that a hard decision to transition him onto wheels?
You know what? For us, the decision was pretty easy, and he adapted really quickly, which I understand not a lot of dogs do. The therapist herself, she was surprised to see that he just jumped right in and was like ready to go. She said it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes there's a lot of training involved. That's another reason we like dogs.
And fitting, like so many times. I cringed lately. There was a post on some, not group, but some other group. Someone had a picture of the wheelchair they bought, asking the Faceboard to tell them, can you share a picture of what it should look like on your 30-pound dog? No, you need to go to an expert, get it fitted, see if it's the right time for wheels in the first place, and then measure it properly and know how to train. Because if you put a tripod in a cart too soon, you can do a lot more harm than good. Or if it doesn't fit properly, you can do more harm than good. Well, and we did a lot of work with Wyatt before we put him.
I want to give an example of we noticed that the tread on Wyatt's wheels was a little uneven. And it's just like a car. Guess what? His alignment was off. And we didn't know that could happen. We thought once you set it, you forget it. No, that's not true. So we had to go back and have her readjust it and show us exactly where it should sit on him. And, we took lots of pictures and things, but yeah, it's a process, and you can have a great life with your tripod. We just really encourage people to be mindful of these things.
And with the carts, the goal is to keep using that leg, but keep up, compensate for the missing weight of the other missing leg. So you don't want them not using that leg at all, because then they're not exercising that leg and it can atrophy and make matters worse. So it's got to be fitted just right, where they're, just right.
Just using it.
That's right. No, actually, someone in the group, Alicia, was commenting that it gave her dog, similar to Wyatt, a lot of freedom in the last stage of his life. And yes, absolutely. You can't just put your dog in it and they take off. It doesn't work like that. And I think the fit is a really important aspect. I actually did a live stream in the group all around the safety aspect, because even fitness is something that we don't think of necessarily. Is if your dog has a decline in fitness and you put them in the cart, it doesn't mean that they're just ready to go and take off, because and especially if they've gained some weight, which we don't want either. But and you actually have on your site, you delve a little bit into the nutrition aspect as well, and I was curious, kind of related to that, what other things did you do with your dogs that made that difference? The nutrition, was there other equipment?
So real quick, just kind of wrap up the cart discussion. After the cart came the stroller. And with both of these tools, what it allowed us to do is go on longer walks, and especially Wyatt loved his stroller. And when we go on a long walk, but then he could get out, hop around and play a bit and walk a little bit, then get back in the cart and go further and then get out. So it's not going to replace the walk. It's going to allow you to enjoy the walk.
So about the nutrition aspect. So in the early days of Tripawds, we were dealing with cancer with Jerry, and there were a lot of cancer related nutrition topics that we focused on. As time went on and we started talking to more nutrition specialists, board certified veterinary nutritionists, we realized, again, there's no cookie cutter approach to cancer therapy. So we kind of downplayed that aspect.
Isn't it?
No, there's not. We thought, oh, there's the cancer diet, which a lot of people are really into finding. There's no one cancer diet. So we encourage people to work with a nutritionist, a boarded nutritionist, to find that appropriate diet for your pet. But the biggest thing we did food-wise was to keep them slim. So pet weight issues are huge right now. And when an overweight pet loses a leg, they can still get around, but it's going to be harder. And so the biggest thing that we've learned over time is to keep your tripod slimmer than, just a little bit slimmer than their breed type. So for Wyatt, it was make sure we can just barely start to see his ribs, see a waistline. Oh yeah. And then we learned the trick where you should be able to feel like the top of your knuckles
like
on your dog.
Not this high ridge. You don't want the ribs looking like that.
You want this.
But you want to be able to feel the ribs.
So yeah, and that's how you know if your dog is in relatively good weight condition. Of course, assessment by a veterinarian is the number one way, but if you just want to play around, what?
So at the WVC conference years ago in the early days, the before times, we did a series of videos where we asked vets and technicians top tips for tripods. And in these, more than a couple dozen videos, 80–90% of them said the number one thing is weight management.
Yeah.
You've got to keep them trim, because all of a sudden, all that extra weight on the remaining limbs, the number one thing you can do to help tripods is to keep them fit and trim. Which
is really hard when your dog is older, or if you have a natural couch potato. It's going to be tough. Or if you're training and doing these rehab exercises and you want to get them to do their cookie crunches, well, we learned that Wyatt loved green beans and bananas and blueberries,
broccoli stems. The dog would love his vegetables. So we fed him in a slow feeder bowl. So he took more time and had to work for his food, and we fed him in interactive brain games. Like we hid his dinner in the snuffle blanket or whatever, with all the things that he got to tear apart and destroy to get to, or the pie thing he would spin. And less is better when it comes to feeding tripod.
Yep.
100%. And I think it can be a sensitive topic, but you must use the body condition score. Do you?
Yes.
Where basically, if you look down at your dog, they should have a waistline. If you look at your dog from the side, they should have a tummy tuck. And if you touch, as they were talked about, you should be able to feel the ribs. You shouldn't be looking for them, essentially. I want to make sure I haven't really prompted anybody in the group if they want to ask any questions. Definitely, because we're been going for 40 some odd minutes. If anybody has any questions for these amazing folks, to please do pop them into the comments. I want to make sure you do get an opportunity to ask questions. And there were a couple questions posted in the event as well. So I'm going to pull that up. But something, Rene, I heard you say on a different, as I'm pulling up those other questions, I love this, was, some of those adaptions that we make for senior dogs, we're just doing those with tripods earlier.
That's totally it. I mean, a lot of people think that, loses a leg and this is the end of fun. We're never going to do anything adventurous again. It's not necessarily true. And the things that the adaptations that you make for a three-legged animal are just what you're going to do when your dog matures and gets older, what you should be doing anyways. To give them a pain-free, good quality of life. So if you're lucky enough to have a pet that lives into the senior years, as we did with Wyatt, boy, you're going to want to do these things for them anyways, just to keep them comfortable and happy and engaged. So we get a head start on that as tripod parents. We learn it a lot sooner than we intended to. But once you know these things, everything changes in how you deal with your animals.
Excellent.
It comes back to that new normal and just adapting and following their lead, because the dog is going to adapt and overcome and adjust and go on and live life to the fullest. And that means it's our responsibility to kind of rein them in once in a while and discover these new and exciting fun things that might not necessarily be detrimental to their health.
Yeah. Our motto actually in this group is, it's not over, it's just different.
Love that. I love that.
Long ago in our community, unfortunately, the top reason for amputation is cancer. So oftentimes, the first question people ask is, how long do I have? How long do I have? And we like to say it's quality of life, not quantity. And a member long ago said a diagnosis doesn't come with an expiration date on their butt. You need to adapt, overcome, and live every day to the fullest, and do everything you can to extend that quantity. But oftentimes there's comorbidities with the cancer that other things can pop up that you just want to make the most of it. And to do that, you want to kind of focus on healing the body and strengthening the remaining legs and core and such. And
actually, related to that note, Angela was asking around cart fitting. Do you have anything? We do have some directories within the Living with Dogs with Disabilities Facebook group for rehab therapists, and some of them work online. But do you also have something that you can direct people to if they think that their dog might benefit from a dog cart or a dog wheelchair on your massive
so
site?
the first thing we say is ask a professional.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we tell people look for the CCRT or the CCRP, their certification. There's also an ACB.
Or if you're in Canada, it's a diploma program.
Yeah,
there you go.
Right. We do have that listed there.
And we have try.pet/find rehab, I think. But on our Tripawds website, there's also a directory of the various different certifications and where you can find them. Yep. And if not, you pick up the phone, you call 1-844-TRIPOD, and Rene will find it for you. She's often, oh, well, where are you? Oh, there happens to be 3 AHA clinics and 6 rehab vets right in your area.
Thank you for doing that, because there is, as someone that works in the field, there's a lot of people that say they do physio or they do these things, but they've taken a weekend course, or because it's regulated for people, but it's not regulated if you choose to use it in the canine world. So you really do have to do your homework to make sure that you're getting somebody that really does know what they're doing. So thank you again for saying that.
Oh, and just to jump in there on that subject real quick, the same thing holds true for prosthetics. And that's a big deal in our community. And a lot of people are interested in them, which is great. But again, you need professional guidance. Please don't have some high school kid make one off their 3D printer for your pet. Go get your dog checked out. You want to think about prosthetics before surgery. Most people come to us when it's too late. The surgery has already taken place and there's not enough residual limb for the prosthetic to attach to.
Joints.
Yeah, so an orthopedic surgeon once told us that you need at least 2 joints to make it for best results.
2, at least 1, preferably 2 articulating joints for that prosthetic to work as an appendage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the full limb amputation, it's cutting edge new therapies being or new products being designed, but it's really more of a support and a brace, because you can't go up and down stairs with something that doesn't bend.
So that's a real hot topic, and that's another reason to take advantage of the rehab reimbursement program. We love prosthetics, and I really feel that our Wyatt could have benefited from one if his amputation surgery had been done with that in mind. But by the time we got educated about prosthetics, we realized there's no way, and rehab therapy confirmed that he couldn't wear one. So that's where the cart came in really handy.
Is that program in here, Rene?
Yeah, it is. If you go up to, you can scroll down too.
So if you scroll down to Rehab Fun,
Tripawds Rehab
right there,
Fun.
past
You just
it.
missed it.
So scroll up.
Up. There you go.
Rehab Fun at the very top.
This one.
So Tripawds Rehab Fun. If you click that, there's like Maggie was an incredible cow dog.
She was an agility dog.
She got us into it, and there's different dogs on different devices, the FitPaws line available at gear.tripaws.com. But you can do things as simple as getting your couch cushions and putting them on the ground and having a dog walk across it for that unstable surface work. There's a dog on a Wobble Board, but you could download one and download plans and make one. Or having them step through stairs, or you could get cavaletti poles, and so there's a lot of things you can do.
And even though we do carry the gear, like the balls and stuff, we do carry them at gear.tripaws.com. Again, we encourage people to learn how to use them properly by working with a therapist.
Get the right exercises prescribed, and especially during the first year or 2 of COVID, we had remote sessions with Wyatt's ortho team, and they would have us, film him walking and doing certain things. And then we met Dr. Waterhouse, who's put together a specific, he's a certified rehab therapist and veterinarian who's put together an at-home program specifically for front and rear leg animals, tripod animals. And again, every case is different, but it's a great, kind of baseline where to start. These things can help a front leg tripod, and these things can help a rear leg tripod. And he talks about nutrition and supplements and the basic exercises. So it's one way to do it remotely or home.
And remote, actually, you can get a lot out of doing it remotely, because you can, when I do remote stuff, people can see what I can see, because I can show them on, you know, when we post videos and go back and take a look at them. So I think that just because you might not have access in person isn't necessarily mean don't do it, because you can still probably access somebody remotely. Because there's even this, you know, introducing new equipment where, like, when you're talking about fit paws and inflatables, if your dog's never been on an inflatable before and suddenly they don't have a limb, and then you're like, hey, go stand on this fit ball, that could be really terrifying. So that's where we can also help that way. But definitely you can do it remote if you can't do it in person. I am going to pull up, before we get close to finishing up, there was 2 questions that were shared previous. I'm just going to do a share screen and pull these right up for you. So Sandy Carney, can somebody tag Sandy if she's not here? Her Ella is missing a front leg. Harnesses.
Wonderful. So Geared Blog, we learned long ago that a harness is a great tool to help provide assistance. It's not going to be a brace or something that helps the dog on its own, but with a handle, you can help up and down stairs, in and out of vehicles, and guide and or attach a leash so you don't have all that strain on the neck. And when it comes to front leg tripods, we've learned that the rough wear flagline harness is the best for tripods, because you don't have to lift any particular leg to put it on. And the only products we sell, we've either tested them personally or people in our community have tested them. And Wyatt's wearing the Webmaster harness there. He's missing a rear leg. So you're able to lift a certain, you have to lift the right front leg of a tripod to put on the Webmaster. The Flagline fits right over the head and has 4 buckles, so you don't have to lift any leg. And both of them are great all-purpose support harnesses for either walking, you can attach to the harness, or for helping up and down, in and out of vehicles. The Webmaster has this additional support belly thing that you attached to it called the brush guard. With the Flagline, it's built in, so it provides that additional support underneath. And we have some exciting new stuff coming in April with some new materials on these items. But for the front legger, we recommend the Flagline.
That's our favorite. It rotates the least.
And honestly, over the years, we've seen a lot of people sharing roughwear knockoffs from Amazon, and people online saying, oh, it's great, and it's, you know, it's so much cheaper. And that's the keyword, they're cheaper. We only offer these roughwear products because we've used them, we've tried and true. Wyatt had one that lasted a good 10 years.
If your dog isn't a harness chewer, those harnesses last a lifetime, literally. I mean, I still have Wyatt's harness from when we first got him.
And he wore his pretty much nonstop. It's comfortable, lightweight.
What about rear harnesses? If you have a rear amputee, do you have a
so that's a tricky one.
That is so tough. That is so
we
tough.
Have yet to find the perfect direct hip support type harness.
So like when Wyatt had the iliopsoas strain, you know, we were trying to get some of that weight off his back leg and help him along. And it was tough. We tried different harnesses with leg loops, but if they don't have enough residual limb, it's just going to slip
the loop
right
doesn't
off their
hold
leg.
on there.
So we carry a product called the Get a Grip, and we like that one because it wraps around the torso, and
we're going to look back there because her question was similar to Sandy's. This is
oh, okay,
but it's similar question, only she was having difficulty with what you're talking about right now with the harness staying where it should.
So we do have one post about using, I think it's a pet safe rear leg, you know, a rear hip support harness, and a hack that you can do to kind of connect it to a front harness if it doesn't have like
I can go put that blog link in there after the show.
I might spend a lot of time looking for it.
yeah, it's buried in there.
There was a way to kind of secure the rear harness to the front portion so that it does stay if you're missing that rear
but
limb.
It's just for walking. Like I wouldn't leave it on Wyatt all day long because it would just slip off of him.
One real simple quick tip when it comes to providing that additional support up and down the stairs is the DIY sling. So if you have a canvas shopping bag, you don't need to go buy, you know, the rear harness. You can take a canvas shopping bag and cut down the sides, and you've got 2 handles on a sling, and you can use that without having to attach it and buckle it. You can just slip it under there, provide the support you need, and move on.
Oh, I love it. I use that one too. It's a fantastic one. For anyone that wants to pop a question before we finish up, please do. Oh, there was some questions related to, Alicia was asking a question related to is it diapers? I grab Howdy by the top and it works so much better than the Help 'em Up harness. Interesting.
What dog diaper? That's what I'd like to know. We had to use diapers on Wyatt for a little bit, and I could not find one that was another issue with
when they're
having
missing
a
the rear leg,
yeah.
trying to keep those things on.
Yeah.
And just talking about harnesses real quick, you know, they're gonna shift when you're missing a front leg. Your harness is gonna shift around. There's no harness that we found that will not.
The flag shifts the least.
The ones we offer slip the least, and they might got to be fit just right. So you want to be able to just put 2 fingers under those straps, and they're gonna slip the least. It's an aesthetic thing. You can still grab that harness and adjust it and provide the support you need.
And it's doing what you need it to do. If anyone has any questions, please do pop them in as we begin to finish up. We also want to talk a little bit before we share some contact information, where to find you everywhere that you are online, about, I like the name Triday, but let's talk a little bit
coming
about,
up.
Yes, talk a little bit about that.
Is it Tuesday? Next Tuesday?
It's
next
this Thursday.
So Friday,
it's the last
Friday?
day of the month.
3/3, March 3rd. 3 is a magic number to tripods, and there are people everywhere. So for years in the community, we've been celebrating Tripawd Awareness Day kind of in the community. And this year we've made it official. We're trying to get on all those calendar websites out there. And the way you're going to help us do that is by sharing the word about Triday. And at triday.pet, we've set up a website where people can get involved and get featured in the gallery and get the word out there by sharing this fun little meme that is what we're calling My Try. And you can download the My Try sign, and it says My Try is, and there it is. You can fill in the blank with whatever your try means to you. So My Try is not handicapped. My Try is currently at the Rainbow Bridge, and My Try is possum. Whatever it means to you, we want you to, take the photo or hold it up on your device and get a photo of you and or your dog or cat with that. Share it, tag hashtag Triday and hashtag MyTry. And if you tag at Tripawds on Facebook and Twitter, or at Tripawds Community on Instagram, we will share the heck out of that for you as well, and put that in our gallery at the triday.pet website.
Yeah.
Do those hashtags again. I'm putting them in the comments.
Oh, thank you.
So hashtag MyTry is when you take the picture of your tripod with what your tripod means to you. Fill in the blank and either do it on the cart. There's people doing some incredibly creative things, dressing up their animals. Perkins the cat made a video. Hashtag MyTry, and then with that image, and we will share it. Hashtag Triday, up until Triday and on Triday, we're going to be watching that trend and sharing all those posts that tag those things. And if you tag us specifically on the page at Tripawds, or on Instagram at Tripawds Community, we'll get you onto the Triday website. And it's all because, we don't want people to know about Jim and Rene. We want people to know about amputation being a treatment for increasing quality of life, considering the alternatives when it comes to amputation, cancer, traumatic injury. You're faced with that traumatic decision of euthanasia or amputation, and it might not get rid of the cancer, but it will get rid of the pain. And it can buy you quality of life time if you follow the tips that we've been talking about. So we're celebrating Tripawds and their people and those who care for them. So we're honoring the vets and the technicians, and we want everyone to know, about Tripawds, the dogs and cats, not Tripawds, the people, Jim and Rene.
And I love the community approach that you have. Like, so much emphasis on that you're not alone, that you even have blogs that other people have shared within your site. So I think that it's really beautiful, and it's really important people know that when they're going through this experience, because you can question your ethics, you can feel isolated, people judge you, but you give a safe place to share and to learn, and that it is really a community that it has really grown there, and then to celebrate that community with Triday.
Well, thank you so much. That means
Yeah.
everything, because you just spelled out our mission at Tripawds. We've created a safe place where there's no judgment and there's no wrong answers and plenty of resources and shoulders to cry on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Really quick, because I think you just gave them, but again, where are people finding you? We're going to drop, I've dropped a lot of links in there, but really quick again, where do they find you?
The primary resources and the videos and the forums and the chats and the blogs and all that are at tripawds.com, and at tripawds.org you can get information about getting reimbursed for rehab. We're helping people pay for amputation surgeries for families in need. We have a free gear assistance program that's also income qualified
right now.
The rescue program, we want everyone to know about the rescue program, because we will provide a matching grant. Oftentimes rescues require an amputation on an animal and they're actively fundraising. If they hit a goal, we'll immediately match that goal through the Tripawds Rescue Fund, and on and on. And then on social media.
On social media, so we're at Tripawds on Facebook, TRIPAWDS, and then on Twitter,
and
on
Pinterest,
and Pinterest,
and LinkedIn.
And on Instagram, it's Tripawds Community, all one word.
That's amazing. You really.
And then for Triday, we're sharing the hashtag Triday and my try with the meme.
I love it. I love it. It's you really are everywhere.
and Talk Radio podcast on all players. Yes. Books, you name it.
Well, we didn't even touch on the books. Do you want to touch very quickly? There's a lot of books they have a lot of books online. We didn't get a chance to talk about your most recent book.
That's quite right. We have a series of 3 pet amputation recovery and care handbooks, 3 legs and a spare, and Loving Life on 3 Legs for dogs, and Cool Tips for Tripod Cats is our cat recovery and care handbook. And then BeMoreDog.net is where in 2019 we published our memoir of Jerry's story and how the community grew and all those lessons we learned on our road trip with him those first 2 years. And we're sharing videos and photos from the excerpts in the book and giving a little more, value-added content there. And that's where you can get the book, Be More Dog.
And I love that book. It's I actually do have the Kindle version, so I do love it.
Thank you.
And make sure that all of those links are in there. I recommend it even if you don't have a dog with 3 legs. It's still
thank you.
A wonderful read. So please do. Thank you everyone for watching. Please do hit the heart button for. I don't even know how you guys have created this, but please do hit the heart button. Thank you so much for creating this. It really is an incredible, incredible resource. And, like I said, the more that I dive into it, the more that I have clients that I've sent to your site.
Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely, you put everything in one place. It is accessible once you know how to find it. And I love
there's a lot there.
Start here is a great tip. And on that note of tips, and you are getting lots of hearts, what would you, if somebody didn't get a chance to watch us for the last hour and you really wanted to give a dog parent something to take away, what would be, and whether you each want to give your own or give them together, your 3 biggest things you want dog parents to know if they're considering an amputation or if they have a dog that has had an amputation?
Sure, we have 3. And the first thing that comes to mind is to don't compare, because every dog is different.
Yeah, that would be our number one. If I could say rehab for all 3, I would, but I'm not going to. So, but
we'll make that number 2.
Rehab is number 2.
Really
please get in touch with a rehab/physiotherapist and find out about your dog's special talents and
the sub tip there for rehab is weight management. So rehab encompasses weight management, nutrition, exercises, etc.
The third one would be, it's all about quality of life, not quantity. So when you're faced with this decision, try not to think of the date that your vet has given you as an expiration date for your dog. That 3 to 6 months prognosis or whatever it is not a prediction. It's not an absolute. So try to remember, if you can make every day the best that it can be, your pet will be so thankful that you made that decision.
That is so incredible. And if anyone when you're watching this, if people can put in the comments their biggest takeaway from listening to Rene and Jim, we would love to hear. And again, I'm going to try to recap what you said, but basically you said, don't compare rehab / weight management, and that it's really about quality, not quantity, and not looking at the end of the road, but where you are now, because our dogs really do teach us to be in the now, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really special. And how you created, you put the Mutts comic strip in the teaser video at the beginning about now. And Mutts is really getting on board with Triday, and they've created a special graphic that they're going to be sharing out. And we just love them so much. Patrick McDonald wrote the foreword to our book, Be More Dog. And we really have a special attachment to that particular comic.
I want to pull that comment up for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So Ollie there is working and slaving away like we used to, and he says, what time is it? And Earl says, now. And the truth is the dogs always know what time it is. And throughout our book, Be More Dog, Learning to Live in the Now, we share all kinds of lessons about resilience and adaptivity and perseverance and all those things that Jerry taught us on the road.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you. Thank you everyone for watching. And again, thank you again for creating all of this and not stopping and living in the now and taking Jerry's legacy forward and helping all of these dogs and all of these dog parents. So thank you again. Thank you everyone for watching. Still post your questions in the comments if you have any. Remember hashtag Triday. I remembered one of those hashtags. We'll put the rest in the comments. Visit these guys online. There is a ton of resources out there. You're not alone. There's lots you can do to help your dogs. Thank you both so much for joining us today. Thank you everyone for
so
watching.
much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for all your great work.
Friday, 3 of 3, March 3rd. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for everyone.